Jonathan, sir.
Hey, Dennis. It took me forever to log in. I apologize.
Not a problem. I have all the other lines muted.
Okay.
We've got everybody here. I've already promoted you to co-promoter, of course, co-presenter.
Okay.
So we are here, and we are ready. So everybody is muted. Let me know when you want me to unmute.
Okay.
And we are glad you're here.
So should I just hit share on my computer?
Yes, sir. And then I will tell you when we see Glacier Bay.
Awesome. Got a bunch of juicy stuff today, so that'll be good.
Fantastic. We, of course, are recording. And I see Glacier Bay is now on the screen. And we are good to go, sir. The floor, of course, is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis. Thanks, everybody, for attending today. A lot of people had been asking me for me to share some of my personal cases with you guys, and I know Elizabeth had been suggesting that I do that, so I pulled out a couple of my juiciest cases. Both are in process, and so I can share all the things that are kind of going on with those, and they both have a lot going on. So in any case, we're going to just jump right into the material, and of course at the end we will leave some time for questions and answers. One of my clients agreed to allow us to kind of peruse their tax return. The other person was uncomfortable with that. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the one of the person that said that we could, they were comfortable having a look at our tax return. So I know a lot of people out there, depending upon how you're coming across your clientele, dealing with a lot of older people, retired people. I do have a case of an older couple, but I also had a case of a couple that was a little bit younger, which maybe a 50-year-old or a 45-year-old is the child or children of some of your clients. But this particular case was obviously through our nonprofit educational workshops. We came across somebody who worked for the school system, and their spouse was a hospital administrator, and they got a couple kids. But since he became a client of ours, he's actually lost his job. So he's not working anymore, and he's not making any income. And so there's a lot of different really interesting things that are going on with his case that I wanted to share with you guys. Also, because of what's going on in the stock market and what's going on with the interest rates and everything else, there's a bunch of moving parts here where this particular client of mine, we sort of have gotten halfway through the process, so I wanted you guys to see where we were going and what our opportunities looked like. So very first, what I would like to do is we have already basically closed on the insurance portion or a big part of the insurance portion of this guy's planning process. So before, I can tell you what this guy had before and what we've done now, but he was making an income prior to us meeting of about $100,000, and his wife was really the big breadwinner. She makes like $300,000, and I wanted to kind of show you what their tax return looked like last year, so you can see it based upon just her income. So I did pull up a copy, hopefully, of the tax return. Yep. So this is the client's tax return. I copied the first page and the second page of it so you could kind of see what was going on. And quite simply, we just have the wages of the spouse here of the $290,000 of taxable earnings. She made over $300,000, but obviously that was because she had a bunch of money going into a 403B at work, which lowered her overall income. So this tax return really doesn't tell us a ton on the first page. They have a tiny bit of interest, a tiny bit of dividends, but based upon this, these guys don't really have a whole lot of money invested or a ton of money in savings. Most of their income is just from wages. So when we go back on the second page, one of the things that's a little bit troubling with this particular client, and I think we're going to help alleviate this problem, and you'll see why. And I don't want to open up the lines for everybody right now because we get a ton of background noise when we do that. But if you have a question or an observation, I believe you can kind of email it, or not email it, or put it in the little text box little question box of the webinar.
That is correct, Jonathan. Jonathan, it is that exactly what you're referring to. It's over on the left side of everybody's screen. There is a chat box, and I'll monitor that, and then, of course, make sure you see them at the end.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And just, Dennis, so you know, I can't pull up my chat box for whatever reason because I don't know how. I've got this nice toolbar up top, and last time I clicked on the toolbar, I turned the webinar off, so I'm not going to touch it.
Not a problem. I'll. Do you want me to? Would you want me to interrupt you with questions as we go, or just wait until
absolutely.
the end?
Absolutely. You can interrupt me. That's totally fine.
Okay, perfect.
So, all right, thanks very much. So, yeah, if you have an observation or question, just stick it in there, but we'll plow through this. One of the things I really don't like seeing with our clients is this line 45. And you don't see it that often, but with higher income people or with people making a lot of passive income from real estate or investments, a lot of times it does crop up. It is the alternative minimum tax. So I can tell you right now, the alternative minimum tax kind of changes the net tax rate that somebody pays because you have the marginal rate that somebody's at. So this particular client, if we look at the marginal tax rate, they make $290,000 as a couple with a couple kids. Under married filing jointly, they're in a 33% tax bracket. So they're in definitely one of the higher brackets. But that AMT that they're paying is just an extra tax on top of their regular, ordinary marginal tax bracket. And people, when they start having to pay AMT, they really don't like it. It's a huge, huge source of discomfort and dislike and frustration for people. So if we can show people, and in this case we can, if we can show them how to either reduce or eliminate the AMT, they are almost entirely sort of all in with our process. So I know that they're not getting a lot of passive income from real estate or from investments, so I know the AMT is really coming from their high income. But other than that, you know, their regular tax that they pay, their tax bracket we just said here, after their deductions of about $50,000, their marginal tax rate is $226,000. All right, so they withheld $58,000, and I believe that I think they, what is their total tax here? Tax. Yeah, I believe they got a tiny little bit of a refund back, but not much. So in any case, the target for this tax return is AMT. When we look at other tax returns, remember when you see 8A and 9A, those are showing you dividends and interest from bank accounts. Obviously, 13 is giving us capital gains, either losses or deductions that people have often. And then if they're getting, if they have a small business that they're involved in, or K1 from an LLC or something similar, you'll see that under 12. And then whenever you see real estate, you'll see line 17. And then IRA distributions and pensions are 15 and 16, and Social Security are lines 20. So there's a ton of stuff. This tax return is actually fairly simple. These people have other problems, which we're going to go ahead and jump back into now. So when I look at this particular model, these guys, what you can't see on here is that the two kids are both in private school. So and it's not just like any ordinary private school. It's like one of the most elite private schools in the area. So this couple's paying $25,000 a year each for each child in elementary school, middle school, and high school. And they are trying to figure out, well, gee, number one, can we afford to keep doing this now that our husband lost his job? And then what on earth do we do for college? So they're really, really stressing about a college planning. So moving down beyond income, you know, they've got some money that they have in savings, and he had a 403B from his teaching, the husband P, and the wife A has a 403B from her hospital that she's contributing $18,000 a year to. I believe she was actually putting in $22,500 into that thing, and we reduced it a little bit because she has to put in a certain amount of money to get her match, and that's what she had to do. So that is the right amount. She has an annuity and an IRA, so a couple other accounts. So maybe they've got, I don't know, $1 million or so. We project everything out at 5%. We put retirement out to age 65 for them, and we assuming they're both going to take full social at age 67 for both of them. and that's basically the deal. So in any case, they had a couple other mutual fund accounts, but these are actually holding just stocks. The reason I know this is because I saw the statements, but I could also tell that from the tax return, because if these were mutual funds, they would be throwing off a lot more dividends than was showing. It's like, I think it was like $88. You know, the dividends that this thing was throwing off right here was like $88. So I know if they have $150,000 in mutual funds, it's going to be throwing off a heck of a lot more than dividends. So these are just stocks that they've had, and I think they've had them for quite a while. Either they inherited them or they bought them at some point and haven't really touched them for anything else. So basically, their house is also a massive asset. They have about a value of about $850,000, but this house is sort of, I guess we would call it, mortgaged fairly to the hilt. They have a primary loan of $390, and they got a HELOC at $250. And the HELOC, the payment varies, but I think they're trying to pay about $1,000 a month to their HELOC. So in any case, what our model does automatically for them is it, talks about how much they'll get from social. It talks about the pension. It talks about income from different places and all this other kind of good stuff that we want to know, and it projects out total retirement income of a couple $100,000. But obviously, after inflation, after retirement, after 20 years from now, it's worth much, much less. But these people, the main reason why they're concerned is they want to be able to keep up their kids in private school, and they wanted to be able to have their kids go to whatever college they wanted to or were able to get into without having to completely break the bank in order to do that. So the part of this plan that I've already done, because they are young and healthy, they both flew through underwriting, and I got a bunch of life insurance on them. I put $1 million of whole life on the wife for about $22,000 a year, and I put about $500,000 of whole life on the husband for about $15,000, so about $37,000 of total premium. They still have a little bit of group term, and they also have a VUL. Obviously, when they're young, the universal life policies are going to be fine, but once these people get into their 60s or older, the universal lives are going to look horrible. They're all going to explode. They're going to lose all of them. Going to create a taxable event. So, we've kind of prepared them for understanding that we're not going to keep these long term. Maybe until retirement we'll keep them. Maybe until the youngest is out of college we'll keep them. But the long-term insurance benefit that we're going to keep is going to be here. And by the way, I'm sorry, I did one spouse I did $1 million of all whole life. The other one I did $500,000 term, $500,000 of whole life. And so the idea is we're going to convert, because he's a man and because he's a little bit older, the premium was more than they could absorb right now. So we're going to convert that term down the road. The two features I can tell you that this particular couple really, really liked about the permanent insurance was the disability benefit and also the long-term care benefit. So they weren't just buying insurance because if something happened to one of them. The survivor wanted to be able to put the kids through college and pay off the mortgage. But there's a significant disability benefit. Both these policies have waiver of premium on them. If you guys aren't familiar with what waiver of premium means, when you put waiver of premium on a good company's term insurance policy or a whole life company's policy, the company doesn't just waive the premium. So in the case of the whole life portion, the $15,000 and the $22,000, when you put waiver premium on there, if either one of these clients gets sick or hurt or disabled and can't work, even if he's unemployed, right? He just has to have a doctor say that he's sick and hurt or can't work. The insurance company will actually make this deposit for them every year into their insurance policies. So you got a 50-year-old couple who's shoveling in $37,000 a year. By the time they retire, they're expecting to have $600,000-$700,000 of cash value in those policies. Well, that $600,000 or $700,000 of cash value won't continue to work for them if they get sick or hurt. But with the disability waiver, it makes sure that money gets put in there no matter what. They can even take the money out to help supplement their income, but that disability waiver is very important. The long-term care portion allows them, as many of you guys know, allows them to access big portions of the death benefit, tax-free for health care expenses, without having to show reimbursements for those types of costs. And the term is really, really interesting. The term is $1,000 a year, so it's like $80 a month. But if the client with term insurance gets disabled and we have waiver on there, guess what we do? We convert the term to whole life and then turn the waiver on, and the waiver will then pay the whole life premium. So that's another $15,000 a year that they will get from the insurance company deposited into their insurance policy for them if they get disabled. So that's a huge benefit. I mean, 30 plus 22, so that's really $55,000 a year of essentially tax-free deposits that will continue on their life insurance up until age 65 to make sure all this stuff works no matter what. So that's a huge game changer for these guys. What we did essentially was we rerouted the money that they were putting into savings, and as a potential cash flow into the life insurance, we reduced a little bit about what the spouse was putting into her retirement account to create some cash flow. But then the other thing we did was we are in the process, I think it's actually already done, is we put these two loans together, the HELOC and the primary. So rather than having two different loans of $390 and $250, they now just have one loan of $650,000. And so that one loan of $650,000 looks like this. They got a little bit of a better rate. It's a really big loan, right? So it's not a hugely better rate. I think they might have gotten 3.5 or 4%. But their one loan is $650,000. So their total payment is $29.19 for that new loan. Obviously, because it's a 30-year loan, they're getting the most tax benefit basically that they can possibly get. And their payment, so they were paying about $1,000 a month for the HELOC and $2,000 for the regular loan. So they were paying about $3,000 a month for those two loans and not getting all the tax benefits that they could have possibly been getting. And so, So their payment essentially didn't change at all. And you know what? I take that back. Let me just show you. I made one mistake. They're not paying $1,000 a month. They're paying $2,000 a month towards the HELOC because they're saving. They're going to save when they refinance. They're saving about $1,000 a month. So that savings of $1,000 a month went right into the husband's life insurance. His insurance is $15,000. So $12,000 of that was freed up by reducing the overall cost of their liability with the two mortgages. So they're now paying $3,000 total instead of $4,000 total. They owe $650. We then had them open up another HELOC, but without taking any money out of it. So that next HELOC was available for about another $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000. Just for emergency purposes, they were able to set that up and give them a little bit more cushion in case they needed some emergency funds. Without having to make a payment on that HELOC, it's available at 3% interest rate or whatever it is. So the other real opportunity that we had was, because this guy, and these guys are 50 and 52, the husband, because he was laid off of work, this $395 is now available. So we rolled over his retirement account, and you guys want to take a wild guess what we did with it? So we took his retirement account and we obviously put it into an annuity with us, but we then did a 72T. And I showed him the 72T calculator. Let me go here. I do usually use the bank rate 72T calculator. I'll show you how that works. About $400,000 went into this 72T. The client's 52. The beneficiary is 50. $17,000 a year. We're now able to access $72,000 a year out of his IRA without incurring any type of IRS penalty. We just have to pay the tax. So we can obviously use that as a resource to do insurance and do other stuff with it, but he was very happy to get his money out of his previous employer, and he was very happy to make sure that this account did something good for him. What I illustrated for the 72T is $17,180 a year. Let's do this. 17,000. So let's put $400,000 here. Let's do minus 17,000 bucks, taken out of it, and let's bring this guy for 15 years down the road. And we showed him, hey, look, we're still going to be roughly maintaining our principal balance in that account. We're just not letting the taxable portion of his life continue to accrue, so he has to pay more taxes later. We're taking that money, we're redirecting it somewhere where it's going to be tax sheltered, and you never have to worry about it again. So they love that.
Jonathan?
Yes.
We have a question, and the question is, why would you open the HELOC when they have adequate savings and large amounts of cash value life policies and 403B loan options?
Great question. The reason why the question is why we open the HELOC. I always open a HELOC, and there's two reasons for it. Is because number one, I don't know how long the husband's not going to be working, so it's an unknown to me. But number two, they need to pay for kids' school for a while, and before they cash out all their other savings or start cashing out their investments, I want that HELOC available in case they need it for school purposes at the rate that they can get at it right now. So they may not be able to get as favorable a HELOC in the future. So whatever their mortgage is, if they've got kids that are going to be going to college, I'm going to want that HELOC for up to 80% loan to value if I can get it. And if the HELOC rate is 3%, they don't pay a dime on it unless they actually take a draw. And then once they take that draw, that HELOC interest also becomes tax deductible for them. So they're paying 3% after their deductions. This family, it's only costing them 2% on the loan. That's a great deal for them. So I think that's a really good question. And I think for most people, their house is a huge part of their financial plan. And I think a lot of times it's a great opportunity for us, and we're just not doing enough with it. So, when they retire, they're not going to stay in this house. This is a large house. They'll end up getting the rest of their equity out and hopefully moving to a smaller house and cash in on this sucker. But at least while they're working, I'd like to get the HELOC now. If you guys remember back in 2008 and 2009, when you had clients that had HELOCs, a lot of times they weren't able to get new HELOCs because the real estate market fell out. That option was taken away. And in fact, sometimes, I remember Nations Bank sent one of my clients who was a doctor a note that said, we're going to close your existing HELOC on you. So if he took a draw on it, so they wouldn't close it. But if it's inactive and the banks are getting nervous that house rates are falling, a lot of times they'll close those loans on you. So I just want to leave these people as much cushion as possible. So thank you very much for that question. That was really good. Going back to our scenario on the loans and stuff like that, I think that if this couple wanted to, and I know a lot of couples do, they want to pay their house off faster. Just to show you the example, I might actually illustrate to them by consolidating these two loans, they can pay their house off faster. And the way that we do that is we do the refinance, and then we take under additional monthly payment because we're saving $1,000. If we wanted to put $1,000 a month extra towards there, we can just do it like that. And then that shows them, well, gee, you're going to have your house paid off in 19 years rather than 30 if you want to make that extra payment. And then typically, at least this couple said to me, I'm not going to be in my house in 19 years. I don't care. I'd rather put my $1,000 a month towards something that's going to do more for me over the next 15 or 20 years. So that's great. Under this asset projection, by doing this, we're showing somebody how we're not letting their retirement accounts grow. Obviously, we've had the conversation with this client that, hey, everything you guys have is taxable. If these accounts continue to grow and you can continue to contribute to them, by the time you retire, there's going to be close to $3 million in your taxable accounts. There's really nothing tax sheltered. Wouldn't it be better if we didn't allow this growth to happen, and maybe we were left with $2 million or $1.5 million in taxable accounts, and then instead we had another $500,000 or $1 million somewhere else where it wasn't taxable, where it could be potentially tax sheltered. Like I said, these cash values, these life insurances, just 10 or 12 years from now, they're going to build up $600,000 to $700,000 of tax-free cash. But on top of that, it gives them protection, it gives them disability, it gives them long-term care. It literally kills like 4 birds with one stone. People totally get that. If you get another advisor in your path, or you get a client that says, "Oh, well, couldn't I make more money if I put my money somewhere else?" You're already putting your money somewhere else. We talked about this morning. I talked to the client about something called foundation capital. One of the advisors said, "Hey, we need to have some foundation capital." I hear a lot of people talk about safe money. The insurance cash value is not an investment. Don't sell it as an investment. You can't count on that as something that you're wanting to grow faster than the stock market. What it is it's completely liquid, tax-free savings, and people need to have it. So because they're building up cash in life insurance, they're not going to be as concerned about the money and savings here. They're not going to be as concerned about the money down here, and they're not going to be as concerned about having a HELOC because they have all that other money. It doesn't mean we don't have this money available, because apparently college nowadays, and I've got kids that are going to be going in a couple years here, but it's not uncommon to pay $50,000 a year for college. And they're going to have one child going, and as soon as that other child's gone, the next child's going to go. So that's 8 years worth of college, $50,000 a year per kid. That's almost probably $500,000 worth of college. And so we want to leave as much room for that as possible, to have places to go to get the money. This couple's not going to get any financial aid. They make way too much money. So we can hide assets all we want. They're still not going to get any financial aid. So do you guys see any other opportunities here where we might kill a couple more birds with another stone, where we can generate more income for them and also generate a tax deduction that could potentially be big enough to eliminate alternative minimum tax for them for the next 5 to 10 years? Right? What did we talk to them about? Well, we know these are all stocks, right? And why aren't they excited to sell their stocks? Hopefully you guys know this too. I'm going to point this out to you guys because I know a lot of people aren't necessarily on top of it. But once you start getting into the higher tax brackets, I should say the highest tax bracket, the nature of capital gains tax changes. If you have a client that's in the 15% income tax bracket or below, I'll ask people this all the time, what capital gains tax rate are they in? People don't realize if you're in a 15% tax bracket or below, your capital gains tax rate is 0. For the vast majority of people in our country that are in the 35% income tax bracket or below, your capital gains tax is 5. And in Maryland, where I live, they've got a 6% state tax, so it's about 15 plus 6, so it's about 21%. And plus you can also throw a little bit of Obamacare tax on there. So maybe 25% capital gains tax. But if you're in the highest bracket, capital gains tax goes up to 20%, which means your overall tax is closer to 30% just on capital gains. So a lot of people are hesitant to sell real estate or to sell stocks because of this potential tax liability. What I would say to them is, you may not have much of a liability if you're down here. If you're here, your liability is not as great as you might think it is, but there's also potential ways where we can avoid that tax liability altogether. And that is very simply, as I do with all my clients, Google the CRUT, right? This is the 72T. This is the CRUT. Let me go ahead and just Google the word CRUT, C-R-U-T. Hit enter. Wikipedia, definition of Google CRUT, talks right here. I'm not going to take your time today to do it. You can do it yourselves. This is how CRUT works. This is how much you get for a CRUT. Got some calculations on it to do it for them. This particular client is probably going to do, we haven't done the CRUT for them yet. They're definitely doing it. They're excited about doing it. They'll probably do $100,000 into a CRUT this year. Okay? So that allows them to sell the $92,000 worth of E-Trade investments, avoid the capital gains tax on them, get significant tax breaks over the next few years, and then I would like to 5 years from now, when you have one kid about to go to college and the other one is about to get out of college, this other investment stock account hopefully will be worth over $100,000 also. Stick another $100,000 into a CRUT for a total of $200,000 invested over 5 years. So that's going to give them enough tax deductions to potentially eliminate, certainly reduce, but more than likely eliminate AMT for 10 years. And it's going to give them an extra income stream, and it's going to completely eliminate the need for them to have to worry about capital gains tax to sell that stock. And so they're kind of leery about, hey, the market might crash. Should we sell this stuff before the market crashes? But on top of that, they're saying, well, we got to pay tax on it. If we do, we just solved that problem for them. They can sell it without having to pay the tax and not have to wait for the market to crash where they might be able to or might have to sell it for less money. It's going to be much, much better. So we got a bunch of insurance premium going in here, redirected from retirement accounts and cash savings from the refi. Obviously, when the spouse gets into her retirement phase, we got more money we're going to roll over, so we're setting ourselves up for future sales. We're also setting ourselves up for a future sale when this guy goes back to work. We can convert the term, or down the road we can convert the term whenever we want to. I really like the situation because they're making ends meet right now on one income. He might not go back and make $100,000. Maybe he goes back and makes $50,000. $50,000 would pay for the kid's college, so he can go back to work and not have to worry about paying for the kid's college. Only make half of what he was making before. And when I pointed that out, they sort of breathed an entire sigh of relief. They're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Our husband doesn't have to go back and make six figures anymore. He can go back and make half what he was making before. All of our other accounts will continue to grow based upon contributions, based upon, hopefully, growth of the accounts. And then we don't have to go into our home equity line or take any college loans out for school. We can just pay for it entirely out of our spousal income when he gets work. And that also gives him another year and a half to find a job that he really wants to do. Totally took the pressure off this couple. They're super excited about that entire thing. And, of course, we are working with her because she's a hospital administrator. Of course, we're working with her to get into her hospital with F3E to do educational workshops for the staff, for the doctors, and for the nurses. Tons of stuff going on in this case. They're not an older client. If this guy hadn't lost his job, for like 90% of the advisors in our business who are only looking for the annuities, you might have made a $150,000 sale if you rolled this into an annuity, and you would have done the wrong thing for the client. Because you would have taken something that is in capital gains tax treatment and turned it into ordinary income for this couple, which is probably not the right thing to do. You wouldn't have freed up their cash flow, and you wouldn't have given them the big sigh of relief knowing college was taking care of it and letting them know exactly how much income that he needed to make in his next job to be really well off with their whole retirement scenario. So they're going to make a couple $100,000 in retirement even without the spouse making any more money, and they're just thrilled to death. Nobody had gone through this type of analysis with them in depth ever before, and they're really happy about it. So that's case number one. Hopefully you saw a lot of different things on there. The big sale that was made, though, the reason why they wanted to do all this business with us is because we showed them how to save money on alternative minimum tax. This one tiny little tax thing that we said, hey, you know what? I think I can save you a big portion, if not all of this $6,000 in taxes. How interested are you in that? That one little thing ended up creating $100,000 in commissions for us on this case. Okay, so do you guys have any questions about that one? Are you ready to go on to the next one? Hopefully it got you guys thinking about all the different types of opportunities that are in front of us that we really need to capitalize on. All right, second case. Kids are a little bit older, couples a little bit older. We are in the process of doing it right now. Only one spouse works, makes $120,000. They have scattered IRAs with Wells Fargo. They have a little bit of money saved, but they have a real estate LLC. They got involved in some type of REIT type of deal at some point with some family members and some other people. They claim it's worth $585,000. It's not worth that to me because it's not spinning off. The K1s are not spinning off hardly anything for them. So I'm not really sure about what it's worth, but I think there's opportunity for us to sell this and potentially do some other exciting stuff with that. This particular client has a house that's worth $350,000. They owe $120,000. They have a 4.5% rate. They have a HELOC also. Well, this is either a HELOC or a second mortgage. I forget which. But not quite the opportunity of the other one, but certainly there's opportunity in here. And just like most people we see, I don't see much Roth going on here. I don't see much municipal bonds. I don't see much of the right life insurance. I see a whole bunch of the wrong life insurance, which we'll dispel in a couple seconds here. But they gave me, they've got small pensions they're going to be entitled to, and they gave me what they thought were going to be their overhead expenses in retirement. So, these guys are doing a pretty good job. I've already kind of gone over the consolidation of the IRA stuff, making sure they miss the next market correction, TIAA Craft, all this money we've consolidated. So he's going to end up with just one IRA for $250, $350, $450, maybe $550,000. And then the wife has one small IRA as well, which can be 42 plus 10. So she'll have, 50 some odd thousand dollars in her IRA. So we've just completely simplified their lives. Two really, really simple things. The vast majority of this stuff is going to be going into Nationwide. I'm going to kind of go over a little bit of an explanation that I think has been really helpful for me and some of the clients that I'm working with about how I position a Nationwide account and why it's so amazing. I really, really love it. I've got it on my desktop. I'll kind of go over with you real quick. A lot of people, and I tell people all the time that I've got clients who retire and they go live in other countries. And, there's lots of different closing techniques, but this is just an extra conversation that I have with our clients, which is basically, if you live in another country, like you live in England or you live in Germany or Australia or anywhere else in the world, and you're investing your money, nobody outside of the United States would put all of their money into U.S. stocks. Everybody would be diversifying outside of just one area, yet most of our clients that have money invested in their 401ks, almost all of their money is invested in just U.S. stocks. It's all in growth funds and growth and income funds and technology funds, but it's almost all U.S. stock-based. Well, when the U.S. stock market doesn't do well, when you're in U.S. stock-based mutual funds, they don't have anywhere to go. They've got to stay in the U.S. They've got to look for more investments. And if everything's losing because the market's going down, they don't have anywhere to go. And like I said, if you're outside the U.S., nobody would ever say, oh, I want to invest all my money inside the U.S. So why on earth would we do it? And then I like to talk to people about when you're looking at international mutual funds or international investment options, the vast majority of the time, those international accounts are just stocks. Well, the J.P. Morgan Mosaic is a global index. And when we talk about global index opportunities, we're not just talking about the United States and Asia and Europe. We're also talking about multiple asset classes. So they don't have to stay just in equities. They can go into fixed income. They can go into commodities. They can go into energy, precious metals. People love it. When I show them this, they love that. They get it right away. And when I say to them, within this Nationwide account, you can invest in this J.P. Morgan index, which, by the way, has returned 69% higher than the S&P index with 79% risk. If you want to go into the U.S. domestic index within Nationwide, you can absolutely do that. If you want to do international index, you can absolutely do that. I just think that for most people, when you show them this, and we're seeking long-term consistent returns, and we're not looking for the 23s or the 26s because we don't want to have to deal with the negative 10s or the negative 23s, we're happy with the 5s, the 4s, the 7s, and the 6s. People love this. I illustrate everything growing at 5%. If we do better, that's fantastic. If we do 5%, that's utopia for us, right? So we have a conversation about that. We don't talk about products, features, benefits so much as, hey, let's really talk about how you want your money to be managed for you in indexes, and then typically people are ready to go. Okay, so we're doing that. Obviously, since this is all taxable, one of, or I should say both the spouses are over 60, we're going to do the same deal. We're going to start drawing income off of here, and we're going to get rid of all this, maybe not get rid of, but we're going to add on to this insurance knowing that the ULs, 1, 2, 3 UL, and then the Prudential term, they're all gone. If we had never come along, this client thinks they've got $1 million worth of life insurance between husband and wife, and they think that that insurance is going to last forever, and we know it's not. We know this stuff is set to implode. If they're healthy, which they are, there's no way they're going to keep these insurance policies past their 70s or 80s. And if they did, they'd be absolutely crazy. And you can reduce premium, and you can play all kinds of games with Universal Life. But the one question that I ask everybody, if you're selling Universal Life right now, the real question I ask you, or if you're a client and you own Universal Life, I'm going to ask you, do you want to be paying for term insurance when you're 90 years old? Do you have any idea what the cost of that term insurance portion of your insurance is when you're 90 years old? And if you decide to change your mind and you don't want to pay for term insurance and you end up cashing in the policy or stripping the policy down and the policy ends up lapsing for any reason, which, by the way, those policies are going to lapse. We know this. They're going to lapse 99% of the time. So if your policy ends up lapsing, it creates a taxable event for all the years' worth of gain that you've had in there that was supposedly tax sheltered. That's never going to happen in whole life. These guys have enough working for them in other areas in their life. Let's not take risk in their life insurance. Let's make sure they have protection for long-term care. Let's make sure they have protection in case they die prematurely. Let's make sure they have protection in case they live too long, that they can take out tax-free inflation-adjusted income from whole life that you can't take out from anywhere else. There's nothing else that does that. There's no IUL in the world that's going to give somebody tax-free inflation-adjusted income forever. It doesn't exist. So anyway, we have $5,000 of premium that they're currently paying, plus we have another $25,000 of premium that we could get coming out of here. You got to pay some taxes on it, so maybe that's $17,000. Then the real thing is we got some consolidations to do down here, right? So I haven't closed on the insurance yet. Clients are just about approved, but I've got 5 plus 17. I got $20,000 of premium already identified. Let's go ahead and refinance these guys now. Let's take a loan for 120 plus 34. That's 154. Let's just go ahead and take a loan for like 175. Let's see what that looks like. Loan for 175. 175. So with this is a P&I number. They might have taxes and insurance of another $300-400. Total payment is about $1,000, let's say. $1,000 compared to what they're paying right now, which is $1,500. So they're paying $1,900. We just freed up another $900 a month. So we might put a little bit of that money into savings because I don't like that they don't have any money in savings. But then we freed up a bunch more money. We're going to be able to add all kinds of income to their retirement, and the income streams that we're going to add on, they're all going to be tax-free for them. So they're going to have more money than they ever thought they could have. They're going to pay less taxes than they ever thought they needed to. On top of that, we're giving them permanent insurance. We're giving them long-term care. And then this real estate LLC, I had suggested to them that they try to sell that, get out from under this deal, find out if their partners would buy it, at least find out what the market value of this sucker is, because that's a massive asset. It's not giving them any benefits at all. If and when they sell it, maybe we'll do a CRUT. Maybe we'll do some other stuff with it. I don't know. But the fact that that it's valuable to some extent and it's doing absolutely nothing for them is absolutely complete waste. So 2 very different cases. Everything is basically predicated, though, on blowing up their island, showing them how everything's taxable. Same deal, though, guys. I can't tell you how many people come to my office and all their insurance is going to be gone. And I say to them, well, I appreciate that you've got $1 million of insurance, and I know you're putting $5,000 a year in there, but what's your expectation in terms of having this insurance in force by the time you actually get to life expectancy? And of course they say, oh, well, we expected it to be there. And of course, you guys, I mean, these are 60-year-olds. They're putting $1,200 a year into UL. These things are going to be $10,000 a year 10 years from now. Then they'll be like $40,000 a year 20 years from now. There's no way these guys are going to put $40,000 a year into $250,000 policies just to cover cost of insurance. It's not going to happen. And so when I pull up their statement and I show them the cost of insurance being taken out of there, how it started out as $80 and now it's $300, they get it right away. They want out. There's no long-term care protection in these old ULs either. They definitely care about their kids. They want to leave with them as much money as possible. So, I think we'll be able to do $1 million of permanent on them whole life, probably $500,000 on each, depending upon how healthy they turn out to be. And we'll put $20-some-odd thousand of premium in there, maybe a little bit more. I'd like to get a little bit more money in savings, and hopefully see this as another opportunity to do something with that LLC. So when I refinanced, I took a little bit of cash out, maybe an extra $20,000 or $30,000, because we're not going to be doing another loan off their house probably ever, because the rates are so low. Plop some of that money in savings for emergencies, and call it a day. So a lot of different stuff. We're doing obviously multiple transactions. We're simplifying their lives. What I say in this particular situation, they would have lost all their insurance. They would have paid taxes on everything, and their estate would have looked horrible. Right? Now what's happening is they get to keep all of their insurance. A huge percentage of their stuff is going to be non-taxable, and their kids and grandkids whom they truly love are going to end up getting more money than they ever dreamed possible. Oh, and by the way, maybe we may earmark some money for charity if it helps us tax-wise now. But let's find out what we can do to get rid of this non-performing asset down here, and we look like the hero. You know, and I asked the question. We had a really high-level members-only training in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and we went over case scenarios like these. And our instinct is always to go after the money, go after their rollovers, go after their investments. And I never, ever do that. And I can't tell you how often a client says to me, by the time 1 or 2 appointments has gone by, and all I've ever talked about is tax savings and estate planning and how to save on fees and how to not lose your insurance, they come to me. I'm going to say 100% of the time they come to me. Almost every time they come to me and they say, well, what do you suggest we do with all this stuff? Or what's our next step with our investments? Or how should we be allocated? They're coming to us asking us rather than us going after them. And that is the difference in the client relationship and the client experience that they're going to have with us because of the process that we use going forward with these clients. So hopefully there was some meat in there that you could use from these 2 different scenarios. These are absolutely personal clients of mine, just mine, not joint with anybody else. All coming in from the foundation, from the marketing that we do. I think there's a tremendous advantage when somebody comes in and gives you all their stuff and says, you know, where do I start, versus us, you know, having to come into our office and them knowing that we're going to try to sell them something. One of the things I can tell you is there is no definitive point in our process, I don't believe, where a client can ever pinpoint the time where they became a client of mine. You know, they're filling out paperwork, we're refinancing, we're moving money around, we're applying for insurance. It's all part of the process. There's no close to the case here, guys. The case is being closed from the very first appointment when they're coming in and giving me all their information. Once they come in and give me all their information, I know that we're going to do the business because we've drastically changed their lives. A lot of people will say to me, well, you know, what's the closing ratio? And I'm telling you right now, if I like them and they like me and they come in through our foundation, we're going to close every single one of them. You know, we have fallout just like anybody else, but it's because they don't like me or I don't like them. Any other point or any other reason, there's nobody that comes up, set up properly. Nobody comes in with everything looking great. It's never happened because there aren't any other advisors out there that do the business the way that we do it. You know, they're specialized in the insurance, trying to sell you well, specialized in annuities, specialized in investments. Maybe they dealt with a mortgage broker. Maybe they dealt with an estate attorney who sold them a bunch of trusts. I just haven't run across anybody that does planning the way we do it. And so we have a massive competitive advantage. More important than that, they go back to their employer. They tell their employer how excited they were, how much business we did, and they invite us back in to do more business, do more talks, get to more of the organizations, and the marketing doesn't cost me anything. I can get in front of as many people as I want on an unlimited basis without having to spend any money other than marketing, except for just the people that work for me, and I love investing in people. I hate investing in leads. There's nothing worse than investing in the leads for me. It's a horrible experience. So that's basically what I got for you. I got just a few minutes left. Anybody have any questions?
Jonathan, I see one question that was asked, and it is wondering what type of product you use for long-term care, understanding that pure LTC premiums are increasing too fast, and many of the carriers have exited the industry.
That's a great question. Let me see if I have it on my desktop somewhere. I use the, primarily I'll put as much life insurance in place as I can with the long-term care rider on there because it's free. I don't typically advocate, let me see here, I don't typically advocate for standalone long-term care insurance policies. I like doing the combo life insurance, long-term care. Let's see if I have it on my desktop. What I don't do also, though, is I don't ever tell them to cancel or replace their existing long-term care. If they have something in place, we want to keep an eye on it to see if it gets more expensive over the years. This is Lafayette's long-term care. This is not a great example because it's kind of convoluted. But I can tell you right now, this is really great. This is the definition of long-term care for the life insurance accelerated benefit. If your client has been unable to perform 2 out of 6 ADLs or requires supervision to protect him or herself due to cognitive impairment, that triggers the life insurance benefit. So that, for me, is the most important benefit to have because it's absolutely free. So I use Mutual Trust and I use Lafayette. That's basically who I use. And if you look back at this case here, what we did was we're going to create $1 million worth of long-term care protection that they don't have to pay anything for. And what the $1 million of protection does for them is it essentially allows them to take anywhere between $10,000 to $100,000 a year out for long-term care benefits for up to 10 or 20 years. And they don't need to show receipts for that. They don't have to even use the money for long-term care. They can use the money for travel or for whatever they want. But that is the main component that I use for long-term care is the life insurance. Hopefully they have a little bit of long-term care they already bought ahead of time when they were younger and healthier than now. But those benefits are getting more expensive and they're getting chopped up, so I don't expect those things to remain intact throughout the course of their lives. I expect those things to get pared down, and I expect the life insurance to only get better. So if I start off with $1 million with a whole life death benefit that's accessible for long-term care, I expect these guys by the time they're 85 or 90 to have $2 million available for long-term care because the death benefits, they definitely grow over time. So, if you need more clarification on that stuff, I talk about that kind of stuff all the time on these webinars. But if you need more clarification or you want to go over a case with me, I'm happy to do that with you.
Excellent. Jonathan, we've got another question. And
Sure.
That question is, what whole life chassis do you prefer for return on investment in the savings component of your life insurance planning?
I just do the basic whole life with Mutual Trust and Lafayette, and I add PUA riders on there. I'm not sure the question, what other options we're talking about. When we're doing whole life, it's just basic whole life insurance. I'll put PUA riders on there in case they want to get more tax sheltering. They got more cash than they know what to do with. Everybody's going to want to have cash in there, but I'm not trying to get 5 or 6 or 7% on their life insurance. I'm trying to get 3 or 4 tax-free, which is typically what they get over time. A real important point to note, our clients, and this is really important, guys, our clients are more than likely never going to touch the cash value of their life insurance. They like to have it there, but they're never going to use it because my clients are never going to touch their life insurance cash value until they've gone through all of this money first. They've got to essentially run out of all this money before they go into their whole life because the whole life is earning so much more money for them down the road. The longer you keep it, the better that stuff gets. It's really the last money that they're ever going to use. And so most people don't end up running out of money before they get into their life insurance. They end up leaving much more life insurance behind than they ever thought they were going to because they just don't need or use the money. So, and even if the ones that do use it, they end up paying it back. They end up putting the money back in down the road when Social Security kicks in or something else. So hopefully I answered that question, but Mutual Trust, Lafayette, those are the 2 main carriers that I use for whole life. I've got some specialty carriers that I use for people that are diabetic or have heart issues or cancer survivors or other things, but this is basically what I do.
I do not see any other questions at this time in the chat box.
All right, well, great. Hopefully this gave you guys some momentum and some ideas to carry into the last quarter of the year. We still have a couple months left to really kick some butt. If you guys are not writing Mutual Trust right now, they've updated a brand new product that came out literally like 2 weeks ago. I believe it's now the #1 whole life product in the marketplace based upon guaranteed cash value and dividends. I sell it all the time. If you want to know more about it, just reach out to me or Creative. I would also tell you that Mutual Trust has an incentive trip next year to Australia for your production for 2017. If you're already writing with them, their incentive trip for 2016 is Hawaii. But we did an incentive just for our guys, and I had 6 qualifiers who all did over $250,000 of premium this past summer. And we invited them to a private, high-level advanced training in Chicago with golf and tons of food and tons of drinks and a lot of fun hanging out. But more important than that was the high-level training that we did. It's another Mutual Trust sponsored outing that we're going to be doing, probably starting off next month, where we'll do the same thing. And we'll do an incentive that's going to include fishing, because the guys that came to the last one all voted. They said they wanted the next trip to be a fishing trip. So we'll do a fishing excursion with lots of food, lots of drinks, and lots of higher-level sales ideas and learning together. And I would love for as many of you guys on the call to be involved as possible. There'll probably be 3 or 4 months to qualify for that. And that will also assure that you get on track to make the Australia trip for next year. And hopefully, we have a dozen guys from our group that make that trip, and it's really awesome to all hang out together. So thank you guys very much, Dennis. Thank you as always. I'm going to bug out now, and hopefully I hear from all you guys soon.
Okay, that ends today's call. Today's call was recorded. We will get a copy of the recording out to everyone who was on the call, and we thank you for your time. Have a great rest of your day.